team is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? Nice to have you. Sorry about last night. Had a few connection issues, which were, well, I don't know really what it was. I had two systems that didn't want to connect to the internet for some strange reason, but wake up this morning and away they go. So weird. But it has been an interesting few days, has it not? My, the things you find underneath New York when you're not looking, eh? That's going to prove to be pretty interesting, and we'll talk a little further about that as the show progresses. There have been all sorts of interesting developments in various different areas of the world. Unfortunately, none of the ones that we really want. We wanted to see a lot more action regarding all that talk about Donald Trump being put back into power on the 7th of January. I think there's a lot of people who are looking forward to seeing something from that. There are a lot of people who are also shaking their heads like me saying, why are you worried about dates? However, it's not like there is nothing happening. There is certainly a great deal of, political actions going on in the background at the moment. So we'll look at that a little bit later too, I guess. Most people, I think, are interested in finding out a bit of an update from what's going on the Sunshine Coast. And I was talking, I spoke to Cam yesterday, but he sent me his reply to the letter that was sent to everybody, the organising committee, if you like, of the homelessness on the Sunshine Coast and the Community Village Initiative. The trespass, or the threats of trespass notice that was given by this guy, Dow Ribu, I think is how you might say his name, not that I really care. Now, got to understand this is probably a topic fairly hot on the Sunshine Coast, and the local member is trying to make the very most out of it that she can. In fact, she's been saying she's been doing so much for the community on this for so many years that in his reply, in their reply, the group have actually laid out exactly how ineffectual, how blustering, and how full of bullshit Sandy Bolton has been from about 2019 on. And to give you an idea, folks, of the Sunshine Coast, it isn't a complete lost cause. This was sent to me last week from my mate Mason. This was at I think he said the Kiwana Shopping Centre. This is on one of the Coles trolleys. So there are those sorts of stickers getting around, but Kiwana is a fair way south of Noosa. And attitudes change, I think, a little bit the further north you go. Sandy Bolton has been claiming, of course, she's been doing so much, and the government department that this Dow Ribu claims to represent as the assistant executive director, who was unaware of the executive director's conversations and deliberations and negotiations with the community village team. Numpty has decided to step in. But I just want to give you a bit of an idea of what they say is their property, and it's their duty to look after, and they own it, and and you can't go near it and don't do anything at all. So here's a little bit of a refresher. This is what we were greeted with when we got inside the gates, and nobody cut any locks, nobody smashed any fences, nobody broke any boom gates. The place was essentially unlocked. There were a number of padlocks on there, probably put there by the crooks who have been going in and raping the place for God knows how long. But certainly they weren't recognised by the man on site from Q-Build, meaning they weren't the state government's locks. There certainly weren't any of the locks that were put on by any of our people. The only lock that had been put on the facility was done so by the authorised representative of the caretaker at the time, and there was no problem with that. But, here is a little bit of a look at just the kind of mess that was just the outside. Okay, this is just the outside. Now, they've got some magnificent graffiti, including, in fact, if you think you're standing from the perspective of where this shot is taken from, over your left shoulder, there was a little girl pedophilia sign graffitied on the wall there. This is a bit of a look at inside. Now, not many of our group managed to go inside for good reason. It is particularly dangerous in there, and let me show you why. Now, under the care of our state government and under the stewardship of QBuild, you're looking at what they have to look after. Now, this is, you have to remember, 10 years they have been responsible for this building. 10 years. So this glass is probably broken 9 years of that, you know, at least. All right. But there is not, no, that was when the police turned up. That's something, you know, a bit of a collection of some of the rubbish from outside. To give you an idea, they'd torn out the hoses, the fire hose reel, and the hose gone. That is an aluminium window frame or a door frame that I'm sure they were looking to try and recycle at some point or other. The rest of that is just swept up rubbish from around the place. There was quite a lot of it. We managed to put it all in piles, ready for collection either by our group, which we're happy to do so because Mason brought his trailer along and could have taken all that. But the QBuild guide says, no, just leave that over there. We'll get to that. So I wonder if that pile will be gone, you know, by the time we go back on site, maybe in a couple of weeks. This is an example of some of the artwork that, well, I was going to say the youth, but it's not always youth that are responsible for this sort of foolishness. So that's just some of it. They were on hoardings that were put up over doors. That is, in effect, the amenities block behind those doors there. Male, female, and handicapped toilet facilities, shower facilities. Of course, now completely useless because of the inaction of shiny-ass dickheads like this fucktard Rabu, who ordains as the assistant executive director with no knowledge of what his boss has done, obviously, to start threatening people. Now, it's his department that's been responsible for this, folks, and make absolutely no doubt about it. They claim, and they have told us in their legal formatted letters, that this is their responsibility. This kind of bullshit is exactly what the people have had to put up with. And here's another look at inside. There is not one desk, not one chair, not one wall, not one bit of glass that does not have a hole in it or multiple holes in it or simply rips through it. Now, where was the Queensland or QBuild and this friggin' Dow Rabu when all this shit was going down? All right, I got a lot more photos, but it shows people's faces, and I'm uncomfortable to show those, so I won't. But for this little turd of a human being, this shiny-ass, pencil-pushing fucking bureaucrat to come up and say, oh, well, it's our responsibility. Well, look at your wastage. Look at your complete piss-poor effort at looking after what is, after all, the people's asset, not the government's. Although in this day and age, it probably is the friggin' government's, because we know they're a corporate entity, a foreign-owned corporate entity, particularly here in friggin' Queensland, but the entire friggin' nation from the top down, right? So they probably do, in some corporate form, have the hold over that land. Well, look what you've let it become, you useless pricks. And now you want to try and fight the community over turning it into something good. That waste of space, Sandy Bolton, God, she should be on her knees apologising to the elders up there for the things, the rumours that she has started. The rumours, my God. The stories that the police have either been told to tell or have just, got a playbook of their own up there to play. The lies that they tell will be exposed. Have absolutely no fear, because every word Sandy Bolton said on site the other day has been recorded, not just by her little people, but by me, from multiple angles. So, Sandy, we're going to have that little conversation, because there's a lot of things that you said the day you turned up and disrupted the community doing what your fucking government is not willing to do for whatever reason. What your incompetent contractors, or maybe they're not incompetent at all. In fact, Wayne and his team were lovely people, right? Lovely people. But I would guarantee it's the incompetence of the department that looks after them, assistantly executive directed by that numpty Rabu, that is responsible for the inaction, the inept dealings and management of, I bet, not just this site, but many, many others in Queensland. I know, because the man from Q Bill, there are many state-owned sites through Queensland that are in just such a state and have been to. Why? Because somebody hasn't filled a brown paper bag with the right amount of money yet, is my bet. So the people in those areas, if you government owned building, you have to know about it. Really would. If it's a derelict mess, if it's been abandoned, if it's been vandalized, if it's been graffitied beyond whatever, I'd like to know about it. How many sites like the Tewantin Tafe are there in Queensland? How many multi-million-dollar sites, the people's assets, let's put native title claim aside for one moment, but they are the people's assets. How many of them are there in Queensland? Exactly. Because I guarantee my place could do a lot with one of those buildings. But to do that, shiny-assed, waste of space bureaucrats like Dal Rabu, the assistant executive director, would have to have some, well, knowledge of what it is that's trying to be done and some desire to try and fix it. And as he works as a bureaucrat in a government department, you can be guaranteed that whatever the people's desire is, his is exactly the opposite. The people don't come into the equation. This Dal Rabu prick is somebody who believes that his pen is mightier than the people. His unelected ass sitting in a Brisbane civilian people paid for chair in a Queensland tax-funded office, no doubt having all his transport and meals dutifully paid for or looked after. He'll be getting a super deal that will be absolutely amazing. He'll be on one of those G27 fucking pay rise kind of deals. You know, I don't know how the public system works. I know that they come with letters in front of it. So I guess it's because they're also highly intelligent. At least they know what they're getting paid by the letter that it starts with, what your paid level at, your group level's at. You fucking bureaucrats, you disgust me. You disgust every good Australian who wants to do something right for their community, who wants to help, who wants to be part of the solution and not the bloody problem. And yet you shiny bum, unelected fucktards, with a wave of your pen, can put the entire mechanism of government behind you to stop the people doing good so you can continue to do fuck all. You disgust me. You disgust any fair-minded thinking human being in this country. You should be shamed on the street when you walk outside, because you bureaucrats live like fucking cockroaches. You hide in the dark. You scuttle about, using the cracks and the edges to hide in. Always in the margins, never out in the light. Because what happens when you get a cockroach in the light? You step on the bastard. They're all cockroaches. Useless, disgusting, pathetic. And we will get to you. The day will come, because it's coming for everybody. The law of the land is the law of the land, and no faction gets to bypass or break the law because they created their own enclave. Illegal and very suspicious tunnels are being made, and there were soiled kiddie mattresses and a baby's high chair found in these tunnels. It appears that children were in these tunnels. Why are authorities so quick to dismiss this and not conduct a proper investigation? Well, it seems like there might be a bit more proper investigation going on. This is what they found under 770 Eastern Parkway in New York City. This is a highly, highly, highly prized Jewish center in Brooklyn that doesn't have a basement, funnily enough. Neighbors to this building had been complaining from last year or previous that they could hear Yiddish coming from somewhere. And this bloke lived on the ground floor with no basement. This is clearly why he could hear Yiddish. Now, I do have another video to play. It probably goes a bit long, but so I won't bother. But this is of the New York police upstairs arresting those Jewish men who were inside this building, some of whom had sat themselves in that tunnel, refusing to allow it to be cemented in, because New York police came with an order to close the tunnel. Now, what these Jewish men had been doing, these Hasidic Jews, had been doing is tunneling underneath 770 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. For what reason? We are unsure, but soiled children's nappies, mattresses, and a high chair indicate that there have been children down there for some reason. But for what reason? Well, the amount of men that came out of this hole inside, I don't know if it's the synagogue or the main library or whatever, there were prayer stools there, they were throwing around and carrying on. And then these bastards come up out of the ground like cockroaches, come up through holes in the floor. There's going to be a lot more coming out of that, folks. A lot more coming out of that. A lot of things happened in Ecuador today. Well, that's a martial law in Ecuador. That is a APC running down the street. I think it's an APC. Didn't have a really good look. However, there was something interesting that happened at the local TV station. Fingers crossed the internet's up to playing it for you. And they've started making demands, telling everybody in Ecuador what's going on, yada, yada, yada. Well, the police came back.
La policía.
So hostages released, and everybody, well, I don't know if they were shot or what happened, but they did manage to regain control of the national TV station. So I'm not sure whether or not Ecuador is still under military law or not. So I haven't had time to really go in and check out, because there were so many other interesting things that happened in the last 24 hours or so. If you were in Miami, you either had the biggest laugh of your life, or you might have got a bit scared. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen Robot Wars. That's probably being a bit just disingenuous. I think there's been a lot of Project Bluebeam in our lives the last few days. I didn't even bother showing you what I find to be the most ridiculous one. And that's with 60-foot tall aliens standing over the nightclub districts in Miami, and aliens walking down the street. This has all been shot with the aliens in shadow, all backlit, and it's all very dramatic. And oh God! And I got to tell you, the aliens are some of the worst CGI effects I've ever seen, and the hologram. Or the hologram technology that they were trying to employ to do this. I think if it was in fact hologram technology, because, well, you can't film a hologram on your mobile phone and have it come out looking like a hologram, because mobile phones don't work like that. I just think it was just some of the worst theatre I've ever seen in my life. So interesting that that's coming in and out and around Miami at the moment. There are a lot of distractions. Why are there a lot of distractions? Could it be because 46 states in America have now recalled their electoral college votes, and have all said that the Biden administration did not win, or the count was incorrect? Their state count was incorrect at the time Biden was announced as winner of that thing at that time. 46 states in America have come out now and pulled all that. Now, that is pretty significant. And that is going on in the background. The mainstream media are definitely not talking about it. Why? Well, because they're trying to conflate the whole 2024 presidential race, which at the moment looks to be between a race between Donald Trump and whoever is brave enough to try and stand up at the other end. Now, there has been a lot of conjecture recently about, will Donald Trump actually stand? Will he run, or will he pull out before the actual vote in November? There have been a number of new faces being put to the people to, I think, test the waters from a Republican perspective. If we don't have Donald Trump as a representative, who will we have? And two of those are Ravi Vimashlamile, or whatever his name is, who I believe is a pretty smart kind of guy, but I think he is a plant. And Nikki Haley, who at one point in time was the US ambassador to the UN, and she was a spectacular performer at that time. Now, I want to say that time was when Obama was in power. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure she was an Obama appointee that either came in his second term or may have actually been there in the first. However, she decided at one point to get out of the UN, which I think she was, that's right. She was first term. I think she was UN ambassador for Obama's first term. She got out for the second term, positioning herself for a tilt at the presidency in either 2020 or 2024. She is being put up now as, and being called in US media anyway, mainstream media, a viable alternative to Trump. Somebody who might, just be able to knock him off. That would be a disappointment, because I wholly believe, given a bit of research, that Nikki Haley is controlled by the CIA. There are a lot of politicians that are controlled by the CIA, and a lot of civilians, people we would deem as civilians at any rate, including some named last night by Ricardo, I'm led to believe. So that'll give him a few more people to go and watch his show who didn't see it. But I know one of the people he named last night. I must ring him and ask directly what the story is with that, because might get an interview out of it. You never know. And funnily enough, he does pose a very interesting question about it all. So Ricardo was quite on the money there, I think. At any rate, I digress. There has been, significant movement in the presidential race. There has been significant I suppose, enlightenment. Things at the border are now being shown in a different light on mainstream media. The free flow of people through the southern border and the absolute lies being told by the politicians and the president about how safe the border is. We are now getting stories out of the towns and cities in Middle America where these people are being bussed or shipped to, airshipped to. Quite often, these people come across a border that has been reinforced with fencing or with barbed wire or whatever, and the Border Patrol guards have to sit there and watch Joe Biden's militia, if you like, the armed forces that he has on the border, cut those wires, bring in heavy machinery, front-end loaders and forklifts to lift up the wire, and they direct those people straight through the hole in the fence and onto buses where they are shipped to the nearest town. They are sorted. Any children who are unaccompanied are looked after and redistributed across America, clearly with a direction on who to vote for come November, because there's really only one man that's responsible for getting you in and letting you in, and that would be Joe Biden. Because right up until he got in, ain't nobody was getting across that border. We have been talking recently about weather and the strange beams that are happening around Australia. There is a brilliant one that came off Mackay. I haven't loaded it up, unfortunately. I'll go and grab it. Actually, I can't. It's on an iPad. I'll try and get it for you for tomorrow night. But this is a great indicator and something that we are and have been saying for a long time, that they have these emitters on ships off our coast. One of these ships was off Mackay, unless there is a very small island they decided to set up there. One of these ships was off Mackay and sending a beam out into the Pacific south, and it was going a good 500 to 700 kilometers sort of southeast, if you like, from just off Mackay for some hours. What was it doing? Well, let's wait and watch. The weather will be interesting to see what it's done over the last couple of days. And more people are taking much more notice and doing a lot more analysis of these beams. We've had many people, some who claim to have radar knowledge, intimate radar knowledge, suggesting that what we're seeing is simply artifacts or fuzz, something that's called fuzz. If there's light sporadic cloud, the Doppler radar might pick that up and show it as a beam or show it as a circle or something. Well, the weird thing is, never happened really before. We haven't seen much of this. And now there are so many pairs of eyes glued to the BOM national radar site all day, every day. And I'm sure that there are people who are smarter than me, who are near some of these sites, who may have EMF readers, who are out there taking readings. Would love to see some of those. I don't have an EMF reader. I was looking the other day at the cost of them. They're about $4, and I'm afraid that's a tank of fuel. So I'm not really prepared to go and spend that. But I do have a little bit of a hope to go for a bit of a drive when we make our trip north or south or east or west. We're going to go and call into some of these places where these beams seem to be emanating from and see if we can't find what it is they might be coming from. I remember driving to Perth some years ago, me and two other mates took a tow truck each from the Gold Coast to Perth. That was our holiday. Yep, boring life. However, there was a town that we came into along the way through outback Western New South Wales. I just can't remember where this place was. And it is going back 5 or 6 years or more now that we did this. But there was the weirdest I had ever seen at a weather station. And now, given, the knowledge that I have now, in fact, this would be probably closer to 10 years ago, this trip, I think I know exactly what it is. So I'm very keen to go back and have another look at those sorts of installations. And wouldn't it be nice to be around when one of them fires off, just so you can get an idea of EMF readings around the atmosphere at the time? Because I think those machines will be able to pick up in whatever band this thing's working. I think they would pick it up. Just to be another little interesting exercise, I would have thought. I've had a conversation with people regarding our weather wars. And I do tend to agree that while they've said, yes, there's bad shit being sprayed and there is good shit being sprayed. And I actually do believe that as well. Only through hearsay evidence from people who love their gardens and grow things in them, flowers, roses in particular. And they have had their soil tested, analysed, so they know the strengths and weaknesses of their soil. And they have seen over the last 12 months or so huge changes in their soil to a point where it's much more fertile now, and roses are growing without the aid of certain other nutrients that they formerly had to be added to that sort of soil. Not anymore, all growing really well. Okay, yep, I think there's probably still bad shit that goes on as well. I think that they are hazing us. I think they are hazing the sunlight. That's a big part of what they try and do. And then when the haze becomes too far dispersed, they can then use the material in that haze to help them with their weather generation projects. It's already up there. It's already hanging there. So it's not going to blow away or do anything unless they get it to blow away or do something. So if they're going to do that, they may as well use it. That's my thoughts. Now, speaking about those beams, we've been watching those pretty consistently now for a couple of weeks. And there, as I say, there are people analysing and watching over time the beams doing what they do, and then watching what the weather does, and then looking for consistency and pattern and all that kind of thing. What they have been able to discover is that beam that comes out of Giles and another one that comes out of Moree, somewhere down that way, they are capable of not only blocking a weather pattern, say holding it against the coast or holding it inland, they are also capable of spinning that weather system, making it turn. And funnily enough, that Moree, or if that's where in fact it comes from, beam, was aimed directly into the area where the tornado began out the back of the Gold Coast on Christmas night. And I can tell you, can I show it to you? I'm not sure if I've got it in here still. Yes, I do. Have a look at this. So this is the track of the tornado that came through the Gold Coast on Christmas night. Now, it started out behind the Gold Coast hinterland, and made its way across Maudslin, over Mount Tambourine, over Maudslin, down through Oxenford, Helens Vale, and then out through Coomba Bar, Paradise Point, and Ephraim Island, increasing. Well, that starting point just north of Beaudesert, just east of Beaudesert, that is directly in line with that beam that was coming out of Moree. So, are they capable of creating tornadoes? Yes, we think they have had that technology for some time. Tornadoes are not something we see in Australia very regularly, at least not on the eastern coast. They are not unheard of. And in fact, I can go back to a time, late 70s, where I was living in Mortlake in Victoria. where a tornado hit the town through wheat silos, grain silos, kilometres, tore roofs off houses, through barns into other people's properties, and in fact doubled back on itself. There's a mountain in Mortlake called Mount Shadwell, and there was a huge explosion that made everything shake. And the way the Weather Bureau explained to us at the time is that the tornado had gone up, hit Mount Shadwell and doubled back on itself, and obviously, I don't know, tore itself up, I don't know. But there was a hell of a lot of damage, huge amount of damage. And it was only a small country town. It didn't make big news story everywhere. There have been others that have gone through that area. I remember Lake Bolac has been hit by more than one, to a point where huge cypress trees were uprooted, a number of them, in the middle of town. There was a bit of damage there too. So look, tornadoes are not unheard of in Australia. We are very lucky that we don't have a tornado alley as such, and that our cities are generally not in any danger from them. The Gold Coast survives water spouts on a regular basis. And, well, what is a water spout if not a tornado just on the water? It's not picking up grass or debris or anything else. All it's other generation, something that, and anybody might think that they're playing around with us at the moment. Get a load of this. For anybody who thought that climate change and, you know, people flying around spraying shit was wrong, this is in Western Sydney at the Western Sydney University, Australia's largest climate change facility. Equiface. I can't help but think that that's got something to do with the UN. If it does have something to do with the UN, then, well, I've probably got a reasonable bit of news about that.
So, guess who's broke and shutting their doors temporarily? The UN. That is correct. Let me just show you the article from Brussels Times. The UN temporarily closes Geneva headquarters due to lack of funds. Aww, poor UN. I know, aren't we all just so sad? I mean, my heart is breaking for those Epstein-type bureaucrats who basically, you know, traffic children in Yugoslavia and women. And there was a whistleblower who came through, and then they changed their charges for human trafficking and lessened it to just violations, you know, because you can't have the truth come out with the UN. But the funny part is the UN is actually out of funds because it costs too much money to run the electricity in their buildings. So their own policies are basically shutting their own doors. Kind of like the entire liberal agenda that's kind of falling apart at the seams, don't you guys think? But it gets even better for the UN because Doug Porter of Canada decided to make a petition for Canada to pull out of the UN. Leslyn Lewis, who's a conservative member in the federal level government, decided to sponsor that petition. Now it's still going and it will be going, and I will have all of the links so you can sign the petition as well. And I know you guys are saying we're not making any difference, like everything is moving slow, but let me just show you this year's Davos meeting and what they want to achieve. So Klaus Schwab's little World Economic Forum annual meeting this year will be about rebuilding trust. Yeah, oh Schwabi. Are you realizing that we don't trust you? That we don't trust your little global leaders, such as Justin Trudeau? Yeah, there will be no trust to rebuild because we will never trust snakes and rats and parasites like yourself. And
ain't that the truth? She goes on to flog him for about another 10 minutes. It's a great little piece. But yeah, a little bit of checking up that the EU. I beg your pardon. The UN does seem to be having problems using NATO at the moment, and questions of what is going on in Russia with NATO. That's another story, and I should probably leave that one to Cindy to cover. Some quick news out of Victoria. Victoria, good luck. God love you, dozens of Victorian police stations are going dark because they don't have enough coppers to put in them. And I mean dozens of them. They're spreading right across the state, and stations to cut their opening hours before the end of November include Wyndham North and Avondale Heights in the west, South Melbourne in the CBD, Camberwell, Malvern, Forest Hill, Mount Waverley, and in the eastern suburbs. There's 7 in the southeast that'll also be infected, Mornington and Hastings on the peninsula. 6 more shut down overnight, including Portland. Now, I don't understand that. The nearest police station to Portland would be 100 kilometres away. That would be Warrnambool. I think Mount Gambier is, well, probably the similar distance now that I think about it, but that's in South Australia, and those police would be out of their jurisdiction. So Warrnambool. Now, how many coppers would be in Warrnambool, do you think? And Warrnambool would need to cover, let me be generous and say Camperdown, Terang. Colac might cover Camperdown. So Terang, Mortlake, Karamat, Koroit, Port Fairy, Woolsthorpe, and all places in between. Now, Warrnambool alone is a town of probably 30, 40, 50,000 these days, and surrounding area, 120 plus, beautiful farming land area down there. And now, Victoria can't find enough police to keep a police station open in Port. I mean, Portland is a port, an access port, an international access port of this country. Now, I guess we've got border security down there, but we can't manage to keep. Why can't we keep coppers? Well, because all the good ones are leaving and all the bad ones are sick. And quite a few of the good ones too, which is unfortunate. I feel quite bad for them in that regard. I will show you that. Oh no, that's the wrong one. I will show you the Mackay beam. I've dug it up to give it a play. There you go. This will give you an idea of what we're talking about. So you can see that's clearly coming from somewhere that isn't on shore. It's not to say that it couldn't be in a national park. And that is some pretty remote area up there. And I don't know it terribly well, but I do know the port area of Mackay pretty well. And there's a couple of islands just off the port that could certainly come from. It does look like it's a little way offshore. So there you go. Interesting beams that you catch floating around the countryside, hey? Fun and games all round. All right, let's go in and have a look at you guys. What have you guys been saying tonight? Yep, underground tunnel in the synagogue in New York. Tunnel holding facility, as far as people are now aware. It looks exactly like a holding facility, and a holding facility for children at that. A lot of questions are going to be asked about that. Will there be any answers coming out of them? I guess that is the $64,000 question. Aussie Sue, God love you. You were the first one to push that up tonight. Thank you so much. Remember to like and share it, folks. The algorithm actually hates us, and we've got a few trolls who like to try and down thumb or do whatever it is they can to try and suppress us. Very disappointing bit of news today came out of Woolworths. I'm glad to see Aussie Sue's all over it. I wouldn't be shopping at Woolworths again. They've now removed all Australia Day paraphernalia from their stores. They won't be selling any of it. You won't be able to buy a, Aussie hat or a pair of silly glasses or a towel or a pair of thongs or whatever from Woolworths. You won't be able to celebrate Australia Day in the style many of you are accustomed to by decorating yourself in our national colours. Very around Australia who have either moved or changed their Australia Day citizenship ceremonies to another day completely and abandoned their Australia Day ceremonies. It's bloody disgusting. Absolutely friggin' disgusting. So while we'll still get the holiday, folks, I want you to get out there and let people know, get whatever you can to support Australia and unity. Doesn't matter your colour, doesn't matter your creed. Well, your creed might matter a bit eventually. But on Australia Day, we celebrate being Australians. And it's a day, particularly this year, where I think we need to reflect. And I think Tim has a day of prayer that he is putting together. I'll get some details on that. Well, if you can't get out and support Australia Day in any other way, and maybe even if you still can, then a day of prayer on Australia Day, asking for the good Lord to help us attain our goals, to bring an end to this madness, to wake up the woke. I don't think that's a bad thing to get behind. So keep an eye out for that. Tim Dwyer's Day of Prayer, and I'll get all the details for you for that too. But yeah, jam it up Woolies' backside and Big W. You won't find any Australia Day paraphernalia there. Coles apparently will let you purchase some minimal range from them. But if you are anything in this movement, you're probably not shopping at Coles or Woolworths anyway. So to them. But I bring it up just to say that if you are going to do that, then complain about it. Let the bastards know that you're not right with their corporate decision. And the fact that they say they've been selling less and less of them over the last few years is absolute bullshit. More people have been buying more of that kind of paraphernalia through Coles and Woolworths. You still get plenty of it online because it is their way of showing their patriotism on our national day. It is their only way. I mean, what else are we going to do? Get out and clap our thongs together or throw an empty esky at each other? Because God knows we wouldn't throw a full one. Yeah, so anyway, let's have a look down and see if there's any questions I can take in here. Alana, if your grass is growing fast, or maybe not. I don't know what grass is like at the moment. But here in Queensland, particularly in southeast Queensland at the moment, if you mow your grass today, you will need to remow it tomorrow. It is growing hellishly quick. I can only imagine in far north Queensland, as they say, if you put a nail in the ground tomorrow, it'll be a palm tree. And pretty much what happens up there. It'll grow anything, and it'll grow it really, really quick. That's happening with us here. It happens this time of year every year. It's a great time of the year for lawn mowing companies, lawn mowing businesses. G'day to Bugsy, my mate Bugsy, who has a lawn mowing business in Mount Gambier. He is doing great guns. If you need your lawns looked after in Mount Gambier, let me know. I can hook you up with my old school mate Craig Parham very, very easily. He is a Richmond supporter, but you know, you can't have everything. Ooh, that's going to get back. What else have we got in the things? In our questions, or well, in our chat tonight. So great to see you guys in the chat. Sunflower, how to you? Lovely to see you guys. I was editing some pictures, and I've got a picture of you and your daughter doing some work at the site there last Friday at Noosa, and the tool I was using was just taking heads out. I went finished the one of you and your daughter. I decided I wouldn't be using any of them because it just started to look really weird. All these headless bodies walking around that facility. So I'll save you that one though and send it to you. What else? Yeah, pineapple. That's a nice one. Remember last year when your window screen was covered with white foam? Now after July 23, it's all Purify. Yeah. How they're purifying is, I don't know. He says, looking up at the package that Rhonda sent me from Cooktown, which is dated, collected, sitting up here beside me. Still waiting for somebody willing to tell us exactly what that is. I've had it in front of at least 3 labs, and they just simply refuse. One of them said, oh yeah, we'll do it. It was going to cost $17,000 or something. Bloody stupid. Because they don't want the truth told. They don't want to be the one that says, yeah, that's what this is, Carl, and then know what I'm going to go off and do with it. Sovereign Joe, I like what you're thinking about there. We're going to need a little bit of that technology ourselves, I think, to build a shield like that. But yeah, no fun at all. Pineapple, you've noted that the eastern states are getting pummeled, yeah, and the western states, I'm led to believe, are suffering very dry time of it. So, well, it's the nature of the country too. But have no doubt, we're only just in January. The real cyclone time for Queensland doesn't really start until February, March. And we were lucky to get Jasper just before Christmas. So who knows what sort of weather fuckery they'll get up to on the West Coast. But I'm going to just take a stab in the dark and say bushfires, because there isn't a hope in hell that they could start a bushfire and do a huge amount of damage in many places on the east coast of Australia at the moment, because it is sodden. Now, is that part of the weather wars? Have we been kept wet to save us from a direct energy weapon doing a flyby? Because it could fly over any of our national parks right now with its beam of whatever power, and it'd be hard pressed to light something stronger than a match, I would have thought, because the ground is sodden. So could this be part of the weather war? I like to think it probably is, without any proof whatsoever. So we're allowed to have comforting thoughts at times, aren't we? There you go. Thank you, Dave. Moree Weather Station and Radar on Blueberry Road. Worth a look on Google Maps. Love your work. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will go and have a look at that after tonight. How many Aussies are actually awake? Baz. What a good question. 40%? No, I don't think there'd be 40% awake. 30%, I think. Let me be generous and say somewhere between 30 and 40%. But 40 would be the big top end. More and more coming on every day, though, which is really good. And more asking for information and doing the research. Following links that they're sent, following links that are on the end of videos that they've been sent to try and pry their eyes open. I've had a little bit of experience in the last 3 weeks with people like that who've come to me and asked, do your worst, which I haven't done because I don't want to really scare them. But they've asked me to show them something that, they ordinarily would never have wanted to see or even acknowledged existed in the world. And a couple of them, I played a video of Joe Biden naked whipping a young, 12-year-old girl who's strung up by her hands against a wall. That elicited probably the wildest reaction out of the group. But more people are starting to ask questions. I'm not saying they're going to believe what we show them all the time or at the first showing of it. But this sort of thing will open up some of their minds to exploring for themselves, to go and find answers to their own questions themselves. And they know that in me, and I hope in you, if you've got friends like this, they have someone point them in a direction that they can get some education or get a little more data to make an informed decision of their own. We want to do this in a loving way. We don't want to do this in a mocking way, we told you so kind of way, and particularly if that person happens to be, jammed up the jibby. Well, that's sad. That's very sad. And just on that point, I see predictions that somebody important has come out with, the name I've forgotten, has come out and said expect somewhere in the vicinity of 1 million deaths in or by April in Australia. 1 million deaths from what? They didn't stipulate. But the conversation at the time, I think, was surrounding the jibbity jab. So take that for what you will. I do think 2024 is going to see us, sadly, going to a lot more funerals, hopefully just participating as grieving guests, not the grieved. But I'm sure some of us will have our time this year too. Who knows? It's not something to be worried about, not something to be scared of, not something to run towards and embrace either, I would suggest. But I'm not afraid of it. If it's coming, it's coming. So no amount of crying about it, worrying about it, or anything else is going to change that. All I can change is what I can do today, tomorrow, and next week. All I can do is try and motivate more people to wake up and try and motivate you to help me wake up a few more people. You could help us out a great deal if you want to come on board as a member here at VoFHQ. We would love you. VoFHQ.com. We've got memberships available from as little as $1.25. And very shortly, can I tell you, we will have a merchandise range because Galactic Larrikin extraordinaire Rob, is working at the moment on some merch and some designs for shirts and mugs and cups and hats and God knows whatever else. And if we can make this work, that's essentially how it's going to pay for Rob to come and be able to help us do things here at the Voice of Freedom. So be prepared. That's coming up real soon. And if you're a member, then you will be able to get deals on all that sort of stuff. So urge you to come and help us out with that. If you want to help us in other ways, just give us a donation, maybe, then you can do that through the website, vofhq.com. There is a donate button there. It would be gratefully accepted at the moment. The vehicle is getting back on the road, but we are very short of funds to get it anywhere. And the last thing I want to do is wind up stranded somewhere in the middle of, wherever, not able to get out. So we do have to have a bit of a plan about where we're going, and we do. Hopefully, if the funding materialises and all things beautiful happen, we'll be making a bit of a trip into New South Wales in February, particularly, I think it's the 22nd of February in Wagga, a big event that Freedom Financial Solutions and Ainsley Bullion are doing there. If you are at all interested in catching up with Cass and finding out more about a self-managed super fund, and how it can benefit you, your family, and, well, your lineage going forward, then get to Wagga on the 22nd. I believe the RSL Club is the venue. You can ring and book a ticket. It's free to go, but you do need to book and tell them you're coming at the RSL in Wagga on the 22nd of February. It's going to be a big night. So not only will there'll be a presentation on self-managed super funds, what's required, how you can benefit, what the benefits are to you and your family. Maybe if you don't think you've got enough super to be able to do this, well, you might find ways that you can combine with others to do this cheaply, effectively, and gain control of your own wealth. And when that happens, you might choose to buy some silver or some gold. Ainsley Bullion, of course, have helped the Voice of Freedom out and the Freedom Broadcasting Network out, and we would love to help them in return by, if you're in the market for gold and silver, go and have a talk to them. They love looking after Voice of Freedom followers, so if you pop in to either the Melbourne office or the Brisbane office, the teams there will look after you. And it will be the Melbourne office, I believe, who are coming up to do the presentation in February. In Wagga, and I believe the next night there will be one in Shepparton. So folks in Shepparton, I know there is a lot of industry, a lot of fruit growing business around Shepparton. If you haven't already got a self-managed super fund and you want to gain control of your wealth, then get in touch with Freedom Financial Solutions or send me an email. I'll send it on to Cass, and we'll make sure that your seat is waiting for you at both events, Wagga and Shepparton, in February. So love to see you there. And if you can come and join us, well, that would be absolutely awesome. Might pray to be further south at that time of year than further north, because, as I say, that's about when we get a few cyclones heading our way. Now, in Queensland, I haven't been into the city today. I did go for a bit of a drive around the area that I live and have a look for flags on our state buildings. Didn't see any, interestingly, but I live a bit of a distance from the city, and I didn't drive in there today just to go and have a look. I may well do so tomorrow. I'd be interested to see what's flying over the Story Bridge at the moment and what's flying above Parliament House. There are stories that there is nothing flying, no government flags and no national flags flying on our state buildings. Now, if that's the case, that is rather interesting. If you know anything about, well, no, I'm not going to teach you that. Go and do a bit of research for yourself. Find out what it means if there are no state flags hanging over state buildings, especially our state parliament. There are meanings to these things, okay? Symbology. Symbology will be their downfall. Remember that term? Well, it sort of works both ways with us. Symbology can work well for us. It won't be a downfall. It's a way of letting the people know that things are happening. So, yeah. Maybe IGA and Foodworks, David. Yep, that might be the way to go. IGA, I know the Ritchie's IGA group are right behind my place. And Ritchie's, well, I know through Victoria and I think New South Wales. On the Sunshine Coast, there's a whole other family that own the Ritchie's. The Ritchie's own the IGAs on the Sunshine Coast. I think there's 8 or 9 different IGAs along there, owned by Roz. Name will come to me. I want to say White, but I could be wrong. And her husband. At any rate, they are right behind the My Place mantra. And yes, if you do have an IGA near you, by all means, go and support them before supporting a Coles or a Woolworths. There has been some appalling figures released by the industry that shows our farmers, who are being paid a wholesale price of next to nothing, are being shafted by these big supermarkets who are charging, sometimes hundreds of times more than they are paying the farmer for the product. They use all the excuses in the book. They have a national, buyer's market to deal from, if you like, so they can pick and choose between zucchinis and apples and oranges and all that sort of stuff. They can put pressure on certain growers, certain types of fruits and vegetables that are grown. And it's now being discovered exactly how they are doing it. And it is appalling, the money that these big corporate supermarket bastards are making at the expense of our farmers. If you don't know a farmer, folks, get off your ass and go out and meet one. Ask them if you can give them a hand for a day and get a bit of an idea of just how hard these people work for us. It's not just for them. Without them, our food supply is gone. And that's what government wants. So how do you stop government getting involved in our food supply? Well, we get involved with it. Maybe we can help the farmers protect our food supply. And we should be protecting the farmers. And the best way we can do that is by supporting them, either buying from them at the gate or going to supermarkets that do pay a fair price for their product. And look, I'm not even totally sure that IGA and Foodworks do pay a fair price for their product. Maybe they could pay more. Since when has the pursuit for profit been what we value more than a society that looks after each other, not at the expense of each other? I just hope we can come to a point one day where that is reality for us, when we can think of someone else before we think of ourselves, when we can think of the overall benefit for the group rather than the individual loss that one might incur. I'm not talking about giving your life up here. I'm just compromise, maybe. Maybe that's what I'm talking about. We have to come together. We have to find a way to do this together. We have to find a way to gently, firmly, solidly, and urgently wake up those people that we can. And sadly, we must walk away from those we can't. All right? And they may well be family and dear friends. And I know when I came to that realization for myself, it was a hard one to come to. I was sad for a day or two. But eventually, I got through that sadness by understanding that we're all presented with the choice. We are all given that choice. And we can't make the choice for other people. That's the test. That's the IQ test, folks. If they can't see it, or we can't see it, one of us will be right. Which one will have the higher IQ at the end of the day? I'm wagering our side, just between you, me, and the gatepost. But, you know, who knows? Weirder things have happened. I'm going to let you go, folks. I've been talking for over an hour, so I don't want to do that again tonight. Thank you so much for your love and support. Please, if you can help us, we are at a point at the moment where we can't go terribly far in the bus. The bus does need a couple of repairs, particularly to rubbery bits around the engines, and I'll have some news for that hopefully next week when we go and see another mechanic. Yeah, if you can help us out with any donations toward the vehicle, folks, it will get back on the road that much sooner. I can't wait to get back on the road east. Well, I'm not going to go too far east, I'll be honest. It's only about 2 kilometres to the water's edge. But north, south, or west, happy to go anywhere, anytime. And if you have a festival in your town, a fishing festival, a rodeo, a flower show, a home show, an event that you would like your town to be put on the map for, then let me know, because I want to come to some of those events and live stream them this year, because I want to start promoting these towns, these events, and the people that put them on, and the places that we have in Australia that show community and unity in that community. So if you know of anything your council is putting on, or other groups in your city might be putting on, your town might be putting on, let us know. I don't care if it's on the water or on a racetrack, on the main road. It doesn't really matter what kind of an event. If you want to get it publicised, and if there are folks who have products they can sell, well, we're happy to help you sell them. Let me know, carl@vofhq.com, and we'll see if we can't put a little calendar of events together where we will be able to share not just the event, but the entire region with the Voice of Freedom and the Freedom Broadcasting Network family. Just quickly on the Freedom Broadcasting Network, there is a few things going on in the background. Obviously, we can't have it, being me all the time. So we do need to have some other heads on there, and talking heads they will be. So we're in the process of talking to some people at the moment about maybe being part of the Freedom Broadcasting Network and being able to put their own show together with my help. Initially, it's not too hard to do, but they'll probably need a bit of help initially. And hopefully I'll have a bit of news for you on that in the next couple of weeks too. So there is a bit of exciting stuff coming our way with all of that. All right, folks, going to love you and leave you, as I have been saying for the last 10 minutes. I'm just going to try and scroll down, see if there's any final questions. Crunch, like what you're saying here, more portals are going to be open to the world, so more strange things will happen. Yep, people will blow it off as CGI. Yeah, look, I think you're quite right. Until we see it with our own eyes and actually have someone dragged off by an alien down a portal hole, I don't know how much reality there's going to be to it. People are primed for Project Bluebeam, so I've got to be honest. If I had an alien turn up in front of me, if I was in Brisbane City, and a 14-foot tall alien appeared in front of me, my first thing to do would be to reach up and grab it, to shake its hand or to touch it in some way, shape or form. I wouldn't be running from it. And my understanding of holograms is they're not very solid. So grow a few balls, folks. Don't run from it. Walk up to it, walk through it. And look, if you walk up to it and bounce off it, then make sure that the handshake is the next thing you're offering. That's all right, because we've got enough dickheads on the roads, folks. Can you imagine what the hell it'd be like if we had dickheads in UFOs?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!